Hi, and good morning to all my friends on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. It's a sporty Saturday morning at Funky Rainbow because World Cup fever rules. I mean, the FIFA finals that are going to be happening on Sunday, 18th December, between Argentina and France. So much excitement in the air. And when you watch a World Cup, you really know, when you watch the matches of the World Cup, you really know why football is perhaps the greatest game in the world. So much action, so much excitement, and so much sporting action in the last month of football. Apurva, so lovely to see you here this morning. Good morning to you. I'm surprised you've managed to find the time to come and watch our bazaar. Such a pleasure to watch you. I mean, to say hello to you always. And as I said, just like football, the sport of football has fans cheering them on from the sidelines. You are our fans for the bazaar, and for sort of really taking forward the message of Indian books to people here, there, and everywhere. Such a pleasure to see you here this morning, Apurva. So, of course, I mean, in celebration of the finals that are going to. I'm not going to say whom I'm rooting for, but if you want to say who you're rooting for, please feel free to put out your posts. I mean, whom do you want to win? Is it going to be France or Argentina, Mbappe or Messi? Whom are you rooting for? Apurva says, I'm as surprised as you that I'm on time. It's a miracle both ways, Apurva. We are on time as well. And we do now with Sham and Anam's studio here. I think we do manage to get the show up and running on time. So, of course, you're free to feel free to tell me whom you're rooting for. We'll count the votes and then we'll say at the end of it whether Argentina or France is going to win. So, in celebration of this great football fever, we said, let's do an entire show dedicated to books on football. Indian children's books mostly, and perhaps just one Western book that's made it into the mix, but there are just wonderful books that are available in Western literature as well. Our focus, as you know, at Funky Rainbow, always on Indian children's books. For those of you who are watching us for the first time, this is a show that we host every Saturday where we make recommendations of children's books, for parents, teachers, librarians, even children who are interested in listening in to what exciting literature is available for them in the Indian publishing context. We have a website, www.funkyrainbow.com. Click on the tab that says Book Bazaar. There are multiple seasons of the bazaar. Most of the most of the bazaars are, themed are categorized thematically. So if you're looking for books for on a particular theme, do check out our bazaars. This one is in season 5, and the header is Football Fever. We will recommend a clutch of books, but there are always a lot more books in that segment than we can talk about at the show. So, of course, when talking about football and books, I was thinking about this last week and I thought, have I read that many sporting books? And well, I do. I've read, biographies of cricket players. I've read Agassi's memoir, Open, which I utterly and absolutely love. But I was just trying to think of what football book I read and really enjoyed. I mean, in my days, in those heydays, Diego Maradona was like God to me. And so I remember reading a biography of Maradona. What a fabulous, flawed human being he really was. But then, just yesterday it came to me that one of the best books of fiction on, I won't even, not even fiction, I'm sorry, it would be like a memoir sort of thing that I absolutely read and enjoyed was Nick Hornby's Fever Pitch. Gosh, what a great book and what a marvelous writer Nick Hornby is. I mean, if you haven't read Fever Pitch, please pick up the book. It's his memoir where he talks about a childhood obsessed with his relationship with a football club. it's Arsenal, of course. And you will discover that how the young man, I mean, combating to combat all the problems and challenges that he faces in life. I mean, his parents are separating, there's all kinds of problems of fitting in school, how he, finds refuge in a football club. And what happens is that football club becomes just so important to him that I think he moves on to becoming an irrational football fan. I mean, I'm wondering, are there even rational fans for anything, really, right? But he becomes this irrational football fan, and how his whole life. Things that he has to do, it gets determined by what Arsenal is doing. Essentially, what a fantastic memoir it is, Nick Hornby's Fever Pitch. You've got to read the book. He's clearly one of our most wonderful writers. That was a book that sort of came to mind yesterday, and I said I must share it with you before we get on to making our recommendations from the Indian kidlit space. Pooja Shankar, good morning. You're rooting for Argentina. Yay, yay. I'm not giving away whom I'm rooting for, but you probably already know. Although I have I studied in France. I did my master's in France, and a clutch of friends messaged saying that I hope you're rooting for France to win. Mouth zipped, not saying anything, just going to watch a fantastic FIFA World Cup final on Sunday. So of course, I mean, and the other writer, a children's writer, again not Indian, whose books I thoroughly enjoyed, and the one that really came to mind as well was Billy the Kid by Michael Morpurgo. I mean, it is, Morpurgo has football in so many of his books, but this one particularly moving because it's, as almost all of Morpurgo's writing is, there's just so much depth, so much emotion, and so much heart in in his writing. This one about a young boy who's wondering if his career, like a young player of the Chelsea club, who's wondering if World War II is going to cut his football career short. I mean, it's just so beautifully written, and it's just such a moving, a moving recollection of the ups and downs in the lives of sports people. And Morpurgo writes with the kind of delicacy and tenderness that we rarely, rarely find in books these days. Divya Menon, good morning. Ameya is sad because her team is out and mine is still there. Which team is out, Avyukt? Who was Ameya's team? Was she rooting for Morocco? Did she want Morocco to win? I too wanted like an African country to come up into the finals, but it's just remarkable how they got there, right up to the semis. Who was Ameya rooting for, and which team of that's your favorite is still there? Do post, and I'll be happy to see what your choices are. Pooja Shankar, you say I studied in the USA, but I'm delighted that you're absolutely rooting for Argentina. So let's get started with our recommendations. We have a lovely writer joining us later in the day today. It is a great FIFA World Cup read. We have Malika Ravikumar, who's going to join us with her latest book, The District Cup. I'm showing you a picture of the District Cup. What a fantastic book this is, about playing football in India. And I'm sure, that, India, a cricket crazy country like India. I'm just delighted that Malika has a book on football, and what a fantastic book it is. We'll hear her, talk about it later when she joins us in the show. So I'm wondering what I should say. Should I say my top 10? I know 11 players on a football field, but let's say one of them got sent off the field. And I'm recommending 10 books to you this morning if we have enough time to talk about each one of them. Avyukt, I can say she wanted Brazil because she likes their colors and because she loves Shakira singing La 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 Brazil song. Absolutely. What a good reason to be a fan, really, right? The colors of that team. I really love the colors of the team, so I'm going to root for that. That's what I was saying. Irrational fans always, they are the best. best. They are absolutely the best. Their love for their teams are is just completely unconditional. But what about yours? What whom are you rooting for, Avyuk? And Tara Veera Raghavan, good morning. We just love seeing you pop up and say good morning, because it always makes me feel like everything is all right in our world when familiar friends come up and say hello every Saturday morning. So the first of our recommendations today, and I'm beginning with a picture book called Sniffles by Sunando C. Now, what is Sniffles all about? I'm sure you think it's about getting a cold. Well, it is about getting a cold, but you know what? It's the day of the famous football cup. Okay, and you can see the famous football cup. And what of poor Divya, who loves football? She has the sniffles. Do you know what the sniffles are? She has a cold and she's going, and she doesn't know if she's going to be able to play the famous football cup. I can see Avyuk saying, Messi always, auntie. What about poor Mbappe? He's scored so many goals in this World Cup, but I'm delighted that you're rooting for Argentina and Messi, and you say your dad too wanted an African team to win. I so badly wanted Morocco to come to the finals, but they really played marvelously to get to where they did. So, to come back to our story of Sniffles, now what happens to Divya? It's the finals of the famous football cup, and you can see that that cup is up there, and Divya keenly going to want to play, I mean, wanting to play in the finals. But of course, if she gets the sniffles, what happens? So what happens to you in the course of the story, of Divya? You figure out what it is to play footballs, especially at a World Cup finals, and what it is to get the sniffles as well, and what you can do to avoid the sniffles. It's a lovely little picture book meant for our youngest readers. And, I think readers as young as, let's say, 4 or 5 will absolutely enjoy this story of Divya, who gets the sniffles just on the eve of the famous cup finals. Pooja, you say, my name is actually Sid. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm sure you're logging in with your, parents' ID. We're utterly delighted that you've joined us at the show, Sid. Shows that you really love football. Please, look at all the books that we're recommending, and I think they will be perfect football reads, to accompany the FIFA football finals. Our next recommendation, and a lovely little book called Nabia. It's a picture book, beautiful picture book written by Chatura Rao and illustrated by Ruchi Masane, who has these glorious, beautiful illustrations, in her book. Now, what is this? The story of what is the story of Nabia, all about? Well, Nabia, she's crazy about football. She loves playing football. In fact, she often plays with the other kids in her locality, and especially loving to play football in the rain. Which kids don't like it, right? Really, to splash and splatter about in the rain. And what happens to Divya? She plays football. She absolutely enjoys going to school, and her favorite subject in school is the English story classes. Nabia listens to her teacher without even blinking her eyes. And what does the story explore? What about the spirited young girl? Is she allowed to play football? And what is beautiful about Ruchi Mahasane's illustrations is the way in which it recreates the neighborhood in which Nabia lives, and in the neighborhood in which Nabia plays football, and the neighborhood in which she sits down and reads all her favorite storybooks. It takes you beautifully into the life of this young girl, 8-year-old girl, who loves to do both things, and you go on a beautiful journey. And Chatura Rao, the author, at one point, I remember saying that this story said that the story was based on her own life experiences. So there's football, a smattering of football in the story, and a beautiful journey into Nabia's world and Nabia's life. We would recommend this book for 5+ year olds. Absolutely a wonderful read for football, for young football fans. Avyuk saying, haha, my amma is also Divya, and she had a similar story, but for a swimming championship. Oh, what fun. Tell your amma she absolutely needs to write that book. I'm not sure how easy it is to get into the swimming pool with the sniffles, but knowing your amma, there's going to be some hilarious outcome to that story, and tell her we would be utterly delighted to hear her narrate it, and also perhaps read it one day as a children's book. Our next recommendation, and it's this is a beautiful book that came onto our shelves a year ago, Barefoot Kanu Dadu. What a lovely, lovely story this one is. It's about a little girl called Chinar who loves to play football. I mean, of course, we're going to have protagonists in our books today, all of whom thoroughly enjoy football. Either they play or they are big fans. And what happens with Chinar is that she wants to, of course, win the World Cup. Who doesn't? The FIFA World Cup, of course. In fact, Chinar loves football more than she does addition, subtraction, or anything else that they teach at school. How familiar is that story? I too would love football a lot more than addition and subtraction. Now, what happens to China? And she's of course talking about football at home, and she says her favorite player is Bibem Devi, and her brother pipes in saying, "Huh." No one better than Sunil Chetri. But, Chinar, of course, just dismisses him, saying, come on, this fellow is such a big cricket fan. How could he possibly know anything about football? So her mother takes her to play football every single day. I mean, because that's how much she loves playing. And one of the days, one of her friends, a group of 4 friends, one of them has a spanking new pair of shoes. And Chinar sees how well she's able to play with the shoes, and immediately after tells her mother, I want shoes like that, Ma. I really want good shoes. And so her mother is like, you already have great shoes. Why do you need another pair? And then, like all good mothers, tells her a story of their grand uncle, Kanu Dadu. So she says, do you know about Kanu Dadu? And she's like, no, who is he? Chinar is like, no, who is he? Well, Kanu Dadu, a real life personality, a person who played football barefoot. And, this is at the time when the British ruled India. And, how he goes on to become a football champion, even just playing barefoot. In fact, he gets to play for Mohan Bagan, the club, the great football club in Calcutta, uh, without shoes. So you see, it's all about the spirit, it's all about your determination, it's all about your enthusiasm. Of course, at a professional level today, there's just so many things players need to play the game, but these stories, which come from our historical context, really telling you stories of people who've triumphed against the odds, even when they didn't have enough. Beautiful story. I'd never known of Barefoot Kanu Dadu till I read this book written by Ananya Das Gupta and illustrated by Upamanyu Bhattacharya and Kalp Sanghvi. It's a great read. We'd say 5, 6+ year olds. It's a fantastic football book. And for all adults who perhaps don't even know who Barefoot Kanu Dadu is. So that was one of our recommendations this morning. And we have the next one, of course, which is a lovely, lovely chapter book by the writer Ken Spillman. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Ken Spillman's writing. I mean, he's done the Daydreamer Dave adventures, which are hugely popular with readers, 7+, and, there are their adventures set, on the Everest, in the, on the Amazon forest, in the savannas. And he has a lovely, lovely chapter book for young readers. We'd say 7 plus. Sid, you say, I have Barefoot Kanu Dadu's book. Oh, that's just fantastic. I think it's such an inspiring story. I mean, we couldn't dream today of being able to play football without shoes, isn't it? But to see that he actually got to play for Calcutta's greatest football club, Mohan Bagan, without shoes, and how that story, in a way, also represents India's defiance against the British. I mean, it's a fantastic story that brings both in together. But to come to Ken Spillman's book, Jake's Great Game, and here, which is illustrated by Chris Nixon, written by Ken Spillman. Now, here's a protagonist who, the humor in the story is that the story begins, Jake knows he's going to be awesome at soccer. He knows he'll be super fast and too tricky, and weave his way in and out of the matches, much faster and better than all the other players. He knows he'll kick the ball into the goal, firing it like a cannon. And he's imagining all this in his head, but when he gets on the field, and when he really gets on the field, I just love how Ken Spillman writes it. His dribbling looks like bad passing, he says, and his passing looks like bad dribbling. So here's a young boy who absolutely loves football, but can't play it to save his life. The ball will absolutely not do what Jake wants it to do. Now, do you think Jake will ever have a great game in his life? Well, you have to read this hilarious book. And like I said, it's a chapter book. So it's not that complicated. You can see, just simple text and some illustrations, which makes it easy. And these are two books in one, like, right? There's Jake's Great Game and there's Jake's Balloon Blast. One side of the book on the great game and one side a story of balloons. So you get two stories, but this one about Jake wanting to play a great game of football. Is it ever going to happen? You have to read this delightful chapter book to find out. We'd say, we'd recommend this for 7+ years old. We do, of course, have a bunch of other football books, and we like it. We like it that our writers include diverse themes into their books. I mean, these could be sporting books, but our writers absolutely do think of various themes and situations that children could encounter or people could encounter when they play sports. And our next book, which is one such, is such a lovely story of a pair of siblings who move from Calcutta to Rourkela. And they're not particularly happy about it. Who would want to leave the big football crazy city of Calcutta and come away to a small town like Rourkela? So this is Against All Odds by Ramendra Kumar. And if you know the writer himself, you will know that he's a man who absolutely has battled all the odds, to come through a very difficult period where he was diagnosed with cancer. He was, in the last Buzzaar, he told us it's just been a week, or maybe a month since he has been diagnosed as being cancer free. And we believe, my gosh, he's really battled the odds with spirit, with a kind of cheer and with the kind of fortitude and a lot of family support to battle against the odds, really. And it's so we feel particularly pleased to recommend his book at the Buzzaar today, Against All Odds. Now, the twins, Karthik and Kavya, like I said, they move from from Calcutta to Rourkela, and they don't quite enjoy the feeling of leaving their friends behind, leaving school behind. And it's particularly tough on Karthik. In Rourkela. Can you guess why? If you see the cover, you have a clue. The boy in the white t-shirt is Karthik. Well, it is because he is an amputee. But the thing is, in Calcutta, nobody ever seemed to notice it. He was, nobody, paid attention to the fact that he just had one arm. But that's not true in Rourkela. People seem to look at him like he's some kind of freak. I mean, and he just is not liking that feeling at all. But even worse is the fact that the football coach at the school in Rourkela absolutely refuses to let him play football. Now, for Karthik, football is his dil and jaan. He absolutely loves the game. And do you think he's going to, battle the odds and be able to play his favorite sport for the school team again? You got to read this fantastic book, which is a story of football. It's a story of friendship. There's a lot of fun worked into it as well, but it's really about one boy surmounting the odds, in order to play his favorite game. Can he? Can't he? Again, a chapter book. We'd say 8+ year olds would thoroughly and absolutely enjoy this fantastic football read. Isn't it, lovely that there exist so many books in the Indian context? I mean, when we started researching football and we were, prompted by Malika Ravikumar's book, when the District Cup came to us and we know that the FIFA finals are happening on Sunday, we were absolutely prompted to consider a bazaar on football. And I was just thinking, man, we're not going to be able to find that many books. But, nothing could be further than the truth. Like I said, when you look and re-look, you will find, several books that would fit themes. And we have only picked 10 of them at the moment. There are a clutch of other ones as well in the bazaar. Again, www.funkyrainbow.com. Click on the tab that says Book Bazaar. The drop down menu will take you to season 5. And there is a segment called Football Fever where you'll find all these books that we're recommending and other ones as well. It is utterly and absolutely, makes me utterly and absolutely delighted to see that we're able to strike so many goals with the right kind of football books. Hello, Mutama. So glad to see you joining us from Chandigarh. We're going to be there soon as well. You are joining us, you say, from the lovely campus of Vivek High School, Chandigarh, where you're busy, setting up our pop-up, sipping chai, and listening to our stories about football. I know you called me this morning to say that, what was particularly lovely about one of the children that you interacted with at Vivek High yesterday was about how, she had set up, rather, she wanted to and has started to collect, to do things to support the rural football players, like football players from rural Punjab, in order to encourage them, in order to support them with the things they need, maybe coaching, maybe clothes, maybe shoes. It's just lovely that a little kid, in that school has taken up this campaign and involved her friends to raise money for, players from rural Punjab who want to play football. Kids, really, just the people who can change the world. And, I'm delighted that you shared this anecdote with me just on the morning of Football Bazaar. And when FIFA fever or World Cup fever is absolutely sky high. Our next recommendation, again, a wonderful writer whose works we thoroughly enjoy. In fact, she has two football books, but we're recommending one of them. This one called 10 by Shamini Flint. I mean, Shamini Flint is such a fantastic writer. We are going to try to see how we can bring her at the bazaar one day. I mean, the kind of writing style, the kind of humor that she has is something that we all thoroughly enjoy at Funky Rainbow. And she has this diary of a cricket god, diary of a soccer star, diary of a taekwondo master. She has this entire, lovely, delightful series. But today we're focusing, I mean, we could have picked Diary of a Soccer Star, which is in our bazaar, of course, but we picked 10. because 10 is the story of a young girl who calls herself Maya Zico, quote unquote Zico David. Now, for those of you who are younger and are watching, like let's say Avyuktes and a couple of other kids who are watching us today, Zico was a really, really well known football player from older times. If you don't know who he is, Google him. He was a legendary player. Many, many decades ago, I shouldn't say many, many decades ago, but yes, at least a decade, ago. And Maya, who's such a big fan, so that gives you an idea when Shamini Flint wrote this book. Maya has called herself Maya Zico David. Now, what does she want to do? She just wants to play football. But she's having a tough time. Why? Because her teachers will never let her get away without doing her classwork. At home, her parents are just not getting along at all. And it's remarkable how, in the book, that Nick Hornby's book that I was telling you about, Fever Pitch, which I think is one of the most outstanding memoirs that I have read. And Nick Hornby's writing style, gosh, it's just to die for, really. You can see that even in that, he's grappling with some trouble that's brewing, between his parents. Much like Maya in the book 10, her parents are not getting along very well. And her brother absolutely prefers hockey way more than football. And you know how it is between siblings. If you like two sports, my God, there's just constant battles. And her grandmother just believes that girls shouldn't be playing any sort of sport. Do you even agree that that's true? I mean, I think, there are such fantastic sportswomen in the world. We doff our hats to all of them. People who have battled the odds and come to play the sport in some instances, and in some instances just train to become, top players in their game, to become like on top of their game. Now, what does Maya do? Will her dream of becoming a football player ever come true, with all these problems that she's dealing with? Teachers that will simply not let her get away without classwork, parents that are having trouble at home, brother who's only believes that hockey is the best of the best of the best game, and a grandmother who just thinks girls shouldn't be playing sport at all. What a fantastic book this is, written in Shamini Flint's wonderful writing style, so easy to read. We would say 8 plus, but even older kids, I mean, there's some small illustrations in the book. Even older kids, there are lots of nuances in the story that an older reader may be able to catch on while she or he is reading this book. Pick it up to figure out if Maya's dream really will come true of becoming a football player. Our next recommendation is the one international book that I wanted to put into this collection because I'm such a huge admirer of Michael Morpurgo. I just love his writing. Like I said, there's a lyricality, there's a tenderness, there's the emotion, which is quite unlike anything else that, I've read. And so this book, Cool by Morpurgo, is such a moving football story. I mean, is it really a football story? No, not really. Obviously, many of the books that we recommend, they're all not just stories of the sport, because sport represents life. A lot of life is encapsulated in sport. And this one, Michael Morpurgo's book, is about a young boy called Robbie. Now, Robbie is in a coma after a car accident. Mm. And we are back. Absolutely back after a technical glitch which hasn't happened in 2 years now. I mean, I don't know what went wrong. The generator that has a backup on the power seems to have just shut down. We're really, really sorry for the inconvenience. Just put your hands up or send a hello to say that you are live and watching. I'm really sorry for this glitch. I mean, it's unexpected that it's not unexpected that the power goes off, but it's unexpected that the generator too absolutely just packs up. So if you can just send out a word of hello or hi, or to say that you all are still here, then I will continue with my recommendations. And I have just one or two more before we invite our wonderful guest of the day to join us. Okay, thank you, Avyukta Namea. It's absolutely lovely to see, reassuring to see you back here. Sid, it just I hope you are able to connect back as well. Anam, hello to you as well. I'm absolutely relieved to see that the live stream is back and a couple of you are watching. Our greatest apologies for the glitch. I don't know what we can do for the backup of the backup, really, right? I don't know what went wrong with the generator. But I'm just going to close with that recommendation on Cool by Michael Morpurgo. I was talking about Morpurgo's book, being about this boy called Robbie who's in a coma after an accident that involved his dog, Lucky. And for our friends on Instagram, we went off the live stream because something, there was a glitch in the in the electricity, in the electrical connections and the generator. There may be new people who are joining our live stream. This is our recommendation on a series of books on football in celebration of the World Cup football finals that's going to be happening on Sunday, 18th December. So coming back to Cool, now what happens? Robbie cannot, move. He cannot speak after the accident. He's in a coma, but he can hear. Now people are not sure whether Robbie is going to survive, this accident. And various people visit him. His parents visit him. Friends visit him, and he wants to reassure everyone and tell them that he is okay. He can hear what they are saying, but is obviously unable to convey what he wanted to say. Now amongst the people who come, and his family, they want to do their best to ensure that he comes out of this coma, and so they bring him his dear friends, his various cousins, and amongst the people who visit him, there's also the very, very famous Chelsea player. You all know Chelsea is a great club, right? Called Zola, who comes to visit Robbie. Now, can Robbie come out of the coma? Robbie is a huge football fan. And, does Robbie come out of the coma? Michael Morpurgo, at his tender and, really exquisite best in this book called Cool. I'm going to, we don't have much time, so I would like to say hello to, to see whether our guest has come into the show. I'm just quickly going to, show you the books. Sham, you can just show the covers of the books that we were going to recommend because they're such great football books. There's Goal, Butterfingers by Khairunisa, which is a hilarious Butterfingers novel that we'd recommend for 9+ year olds. There's this beautiful story of two friends who love playing football, called Half the Field Is Mine by Swati Sengupta, which is a fantastic story of two friends, one of whom is the daughter of the house help, in the house of this, actually, Champa and Oli. And Champa is the daughter of Oli's household help. What binds them together? It's football. And they're just pre-adolescent girls. So what happens is, at one point in the school, on the school team, they say girls can't play football anymore. What happens to Champa and Oli? What tests their friendship? Swati Sengupta writing a fantastic book that shows you why the best of sport encapsulates the best of life, really. I mean, when I say the best of life, I mean life in all its, up and down glory. And of course, the last book, I mean, Half the Field is Mine, we'd recommend it for 10, 11 plus year olds. There's this fantastic book, Red Card, which I just loved reading. And I was utterly delighted when Muttama's avid reading daughter, Tamanna, said, "Wow, what a cool book it is, Auntie." So, for all you young people out there, the language in the book is, very much the kind of language that young people speak on the playground these days. Is about a young boy called Rishabh Bala in his 10th grade who, absolutely is a big, big football fan, but he's bewildered himself, about how hopelessly in love he's fallen with a classmate in school. There's the board exams, there's this new love in his life, and there are just so many distractions. Can he dedicate his life to football like he wanted to do it? I mean, it's a beautiful coming of age story that we would recommend for 12 plus year olds. But, sorry, we had to rush through these recommendations because of the glitch in our electrical connection. But I now would like to invite our wonderful guest for the day, whose book prompted this entire bazaar on football books, Mallika Ravikumar. Sham, is Malika there?
Yeah, already coming in.
Hi, Malika.
Hi, Vidya. So nice to see you again
Okay.
and
Hi.
be back here on Book Bazaar. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely a pleasure. It's such a pleasure to host you here again. I'm sorry we got a little delayed in connecting you. There was a glitch at our end in the course of the recommendations. The power
No
went off
worries.
and the generator went off as well. And I'm like, okay, sports obviously has to teach you a lot of life lessons on how to deal with these things. It took us
Absolutely.
10 minutes to get the stream back up live. But
No
what
worries.
we're
No
going to
worries.
do is to send you the invitation on Instagram right now so
Yeah.
that we can
Okay.
connect and our friends on Instagram can watch us as well.
Sure.
Sham's just sending out the invitation to you.
And I've been watching the last few minutes. I've seen some lovely recommendations. I would love to read them and get them for my kids. Especially the last one that you mentioned about the house help and the girl playing football, and the
Yes,
girls couldn't play because that's a theme which I have also included in my book.
explode in
It'd be
your book.
wonderful to read. Yeah.
Absolutely, it's a fantastic book. And there's the diversity in it is the mix of characters, like the characters from two different kinds of backgrounds, but bonded by football, and then having to grapple with the school team saying girls can't play anymore, and then
Yeah.
one of them just has a secret up her sleeve. What does that
Okay.
do to the friendship? I mean, it's a phenomenal book. Swati Sengupta has written it really, really wonderfully well. But
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, Anakin Muttama joins us from Chandigarh. She's saying, "Hello, Malika, my friend."
Hi,
And
Mutama.
from there, from Chandigarh, sending you, issuing you a threat saying you better order the book from Funky Rainbow only.
Send the invite.
Have you
Yeah.
received the invite, Malika?
No, not yet.
Okay, wait, we're sending it to you again.
Yeah.
And for it's done. We've sent you an
Yes, I
invitation.
just
Has
got
it
it.
come
Yeah.
in? Yeah. If you
Yes.
could accept, then
Yeah.
okay, that's great. We are,
Yes.
for our friends on Instagram as well, many of whom were watching when the live stream just got cut off. I'm so glad some of you have come back. But I want to quickly introduce Malika Ravikumar before we start chatting about her book. Once a lawyer by profession, and that's how Muttama knows Malika really well. Malika now writes books for children, young readers on Indian history, culture, and nature. Her books include Of Revolutionaries and Bravehearts, which we have, of course, notable tales from Indian history. Which where she's picked out some fantastic tales from Indian history to tell you. And it's not just the usual, Bravehearts and revolutionaries that we know of. There's also Tracing Roots, stories about trees, obviously a theme that's very, very close to Malika's heart because she runs a YouTube channel that that's called Tree Talk with Malika Ravikumar, where she shares fascinating, biological, historical, mythological, cultural insights into trees. So, for those of you who love trees, you can pick up the book, but you can also tune into Malika's YouTube channel called Tree Talk with Malika Ravikumar. And she's done a couple of stories for Storyweaver, which you can sort of read online. Are they available as books, Malika?
No, no,
Are they
they are on
printed
the
yet?
Storyweaver website. Yeah,
I think they're probably going to get printed, maybe, I hope, in this year
let's see.
post COVID. She has two books on the Storyweaver platform. But the reason she's here today joining us is because this fantastic new book that just came like right in time for the FIFA World Cup finals.
Yes.
This is Malika's latest book, The District Club, and that's exactly why she's here to join us in conversation about the writing of a football book, and we're going to ask her some tough ones on whether she really plays the sport, or has she got people in her life who play the sport, which we will hear right from Malika. I can just see a question which Avyukt, we have viewers, adults and some children watching Malika today, and one of them, Avyukt, says, Auntie, could you please share the first book again? Did you want me to share Malika's first book again? We know Avyukt is a huge history buff. Apparently,
Okay.
when he was just 3 years old, his father picked up history books and started reading to him over breakfast.
My goodness. Wow.
So this is of Revolutionaries and Bravehearts, and Avyukt and Siddharth. If you don't have a copy of the book, it's got to be on your shelves instantly. And Sid, I'm so glad you're back. We completely missed you. We wondered whether when the stream got cut off, we'd lost you. But like I said, we're talking about Sid. I think is a huge football fan, and keenly looking to listen in about your story about the District Cup. So, of course,
Right.
Malika, you're right on the ball when it comes to this book. I mean, written in time to sort of accompany the real life action of the FIFA World Cup. Tell us, why and how you chose to write on this theme.
Okay, so why I chose to write on this theme is very slightly funny story, because I have, like you said, written books before, Tracing Roots and Revolutionaries and Bravehearts and other books, and I would find my kids reading Harry Potter all the time, and I tell them, I've also written some books, read my books also. Other people are reading my books, you should also read my books. And they said, no, no, but you don't write what we want to read. So I said, what do you want to read? And both my kids are, avid footballers and football buffs. And they said, we'd love to read if you write about football. So I knew, that was a way of, because that is not my cup of tea at all, actually. So I said, yeah, right, try think about me writing about football. But then that idea kept gnawing away and, eating into my thoughts. And I suddenly, there was a character forming and then a plot and an idea. And I said, why not give it a shot? Let me try. And I wrote sample chapters and I wrote out an outline, and I thought, hey, this looks this looks pretty decent, and my kids liked it. So I pitched it, and Puffin said, yes, World Cup is coming up next year. We would love to take it up, and so the background is completely different from where the book actually went.
Completely different from being a football fan girl. It's
Yes,
like, I just love that point. My kids are always reading Harry Potter, and I'm like, hey, I'm writing books. Why don't you read mine? Really,
yes,
right? It's really
yeah.
hilarious, and I'm so glad you've given them a book that they have. They read it already? I
Yes,
hope
yes.
they
They
were your
actually read the
editors.
draft itself and gave me a lot of inputs as I was working on it. So they were totally involved, and they loved, because they love football, they were reading. So that was the intention initially. Yeah.
Fantastic! What a fantastic collaborative effort, honestly.
Yes.
So Malika, I know, and in fact, ladies and gentlemen and kids, I need to tell you, Malika is joining us from Portugal, and it's. I'm sure it's a fairly insane early morning hour, although
Yes.
she insists it's not so insane at 6 a.m. I wanted to tell her that I'm never going to be smiling like this at 6 a.m. in the morning for sure. But Malika, you've been living in Europe for a while now, and just everyone I know who's a football fan says Europe is just absolutely crazy about football, and watching the sport in Europe is a completely different life experience. I mean, is this
Yes.
true? And did it play some sort of role in the creation of your book?
Like I said, I pitched this idea to Puffin over a year ago, and I have
Hmm.
been living in Europe for the last 1 year or so. So before that, I was in Mumbai. So a large part of the creation of the book, the ideation, the pitching, the contract, everything happened before I moved. So I've been here only
Okay.
for a very short while,
Uh-huh.
and most of the material that went into the creation of the book is my experiences in India. But yes, being here has shown me the contrast, how much better we can be if we get more disciplined and organized and so on. Because things here are far more organized and disciplined than they are in India. Because many of these instances that I speak about in the book, as episodes that happen, they wouldn't have happened here simply because they are just better organized and the system is more honest in terms of not because people there don't want to be honest, but just because the system is everything is on paper. So if age cheating, which is one of the themes of the book, it is very difficult for someone to do that here because one everyone has birth certificates when as soon as they're born,
Absolutely.
and the records when you're playing football, you have submitted your documents, it's all in a system. So even if you change cities, the football federation has it all online, so you can't go to another city and say I'm 3 years younger. But in India, being such a huge country and there's so many other teething problems, these things are possible because the system is not as developed as it is here.
In a sense, much of the book was, of course, conceptualized in India, you're saying.
Yes.
Of course, Muttama saying, I'm unpacking boxes there, for the event that's going to begin on the 19th. And, I have just managed to get Braveheart of Revolutionaries and Bravehearts
Oh,
in my
nice.
hand. She's just, I think, honing in like an eagle into these books. She says, what a coincidence. But to come back to the District Cup, which I utterly and absolutely enjoyed reading. I mean, it came to us, I think, just 10 days ago, and I finished reading it just one day before I had to, get onto this chat with you. I mean, the novel really blows the whistle, so to speak, on unbridled corruption in sport in India. I mean, for viewers who are watching, I mean, there is the talented Maulsari Eagles, the group, who are, the main group in the book, basically, the football team. What happens is they're bogged down by all kinds of problems. I mean, all kinds of challenges. Prithvi, he wants to play the protagonist. He wants to play football at a professional level, but his father's middle class attitudes don't really, permit him to do that. There's, of course, the winger Kadambini, and that's when you said, who wants to fight against all the negative attitudes and the gender stereotypes that are heaped against her for being a girl who wants to play football. And of course, there's Mangya, who's a street performer, who also, he has to work on the streets for a living, who is part of the team. I mean, these are some of the players, but there's also the coach. I particularly love the character of the coach, Siraj, because, he wants to do something for this very talented team to succeed, to play, in the finals, to play to win the cup. But he too is, bogged down by several injustices that he sees happening right in front of his eyes. Now, tell us,
Yeah.
most sporting stories are like, battling the odds kind of stories, right? I mean, and
Yeah.
even if there are, stumbling blocks, it's stumbling blocks that protagonists personally feel. But here, the stumbling block is indeed the dark side of sport in India. Why did you
Yeah.
choose to write about this?
Right. So, like I said, both my sons played football. They're, of course, very young. So, it's youth football. I don't know much about the professional football setup, but I've seen a lot of the youth football happening in Mumbai and around Mumbai. And I did encounter some issues of, people trying to cheat, age fraud, of, coaches, or the tournament organizers trying very petty things to get ahead. So I did, actually witness some of these incidents. And because my kids were playing football, I was speaking to coaches and referees during tournaments. When you're waiting around for your matches, you have other parents, so you speak to people and you hear more stories. And once I decided that I'm writing this football story, I didn't want it to be a flippant, light-hearted story, because I knew there were these issues and it hasn't been written about before. And here I
Correct.
thought, it's a good idea, good platform to really take this to a wider audience, because age fraud is a very big. I didn't know this when I started writing,
Ah,
but when I started, I decided there were several issues that I thought I could zero in on, but I decided to go in for this one because once I started speaking to people, I spoke to people in the AIFF, that is the All India Football Federation. I
Federation.
spoke to coaches, I spoke to referees, I spoke to players, I spoke to people who had quit the system because of age fraud, because they didn't want to cheat, and they said so many people were cheating. At least 50% of the team is cheating, and I
Oh
didn't want to
gosh.
cheat, so the only thing I could do was quit, because I wasn't good enough to compete with people 2 or 3 years senior to me. Some of them even told me stories about how they went for state level trials and their coach had come for the training. So somebody who's a decade older almost is also coming for the same selection and trials as you. So, really
Oh
shocking
gosh.
incidents like
Wow.
that. I, discovered when I was speaking to people during my research, and I thought this is, a big issue and it should be written about. So that's how I zeroed in on age fraud as the main theme. And it's not just in football, it is across sport in India. If you just Google age fraud in Indian sport, you'll find dozens and dozens of articles, and some very well researched ones. I even spoke to some of the journalists who have researched on this issue. And on my web, actually behind the book, there is a barcode on the back. And yeah, I'll just hold it up here. There is a
Yeah.
barcode. Yes. So that barcode actually takes you to a page on my website where I have put up all this material about, the law on age fraud, what the sports code is, the articles that form the bedrock of all my research, and various other, interesting snippets about the book, including the story of why I wrote this book. So this barcode leads you to all of that, but all that material on age fraud is real, and I've put up the sources there for those who are interested to read. So
Wow.
that's how really this became the central issue of the book.
So the lawyer in you absolutely, sort of
Yes, yes,
came alive, when you were writing this book. I
yes.
mean, yes, I mean, there are so many difficulties that this team, has to overcome. But yet, the book eventually is about, in the tradition of the best sport books in the world, right? It's about overcoming the odds, and even more importantly, fighting for one's rights. I think that
Yeah.
all your characters, I mean, in their own small ways, I mean, in their own small worlds, like really epitomize that. Would you like to tell us about, would you like to tell us about this by introducing one or two of the characters to our audience who's listening in?
Sure. So the character you liked very much, Siraj, who is the
Siraj.
coach.
Yeah.
He's the coach. There is a coach. So there are two protagonists in that sense. Although they say that you should have one protagonist in a story, I've gone with a slightly different. So there is the coach and the student, the player, that is Prithvi. And
Prithvi.
so Siraj is actually, the name itself is a blend of the names of my children's football coaches, Sajjad and Riaz. They were my children's first two football coaches,
Oh,
and I sort
nice.
of blend their name and form Siraj. They are very good, dedicated, sincere coaches, and so that's sort of, But everything else is of course fictional. All that Siraj does, and that's part of, a story that I have woven. So he is. I wanted to show somebody who's sincere in trying to fight the system, but also has personal hurdles of his own. So he, like you see in the book, he has a child who has a issue, and I don't want to
Right.
reveal too much, but yeah. So he also has personal hurdles to show that it is a difficult world, because also the other issues I show off about money, because during COVID so many sportsmen, especially referees, players, coaches, they took such a bad hit and there was nobody to support them. Some federations did, I heard, send out some help, some food, grains, etc., but that was very, very minimal. And I had referees who I knew, reached out to us parents saying, can you please, help us with some money? And so it was in a
Mm.
very, they were in a very bad state. So in some of these incidents you see in the book itself, I've shown a referee's life also, because
Mhm.
we, referees are generally seen as, these guys take bad decisions and they're lousy and miserable, but their perspective is also, I thought, important to show. So Siraj is one of those people who's, not well to do, and he's not doing this because he's comfortable, but he really sincerely believes it, and despite his challenges he's doing this. So there are so many people you also meet like that, and I wanted to
Mhm.
show that. So Siraj is a very interesting character. The other is of course Prithvi, because he's a child who wants to play, but his father doesn't want him to play. I think a lot of middle class children in India would be facing those problems. And from the parents' perspective, it's not like the parent is a villain. That also I
Yeah,
wanted to show. In the start, it does seem
absolutely.
like the father is a villain, but he also has reasonable arguments to say that this is why I don't want you to play. So I wanted to show both sides, an adult's struggle as well as a child's struggle, but the other side as well, to say that the other side is not unreasonable and evil, but it's just how life plays out.
Absolutely, that's actually, you hit the nail on the head. That is the, the triumphing against odds. You can see in various contexts. You can see children doing it, like Kadambini is like fighting gender
Yes, yes,
biases because of
yes.
being a girl who's playing football, and Mangya, but also Siraj. So literally for me, his character, I mean, maybe I connected better with an adult character, having maybe understanding some of those challenges a lot better. But yeah, you really do have multiple protagonists in this
Yes.
book. And when we were chatting yesterday, when you sort of said that most of the characters and the situations in this book are really have real life parallels, so I was quite I know you started by saying that, I mean, there's a lot of malpractices. There's the sanghatan, right, which is
Yeah.
like trying to prevent these, I mean, when politics gets into, or the government gets into these sports, the kind of wheeling dealings that sort of go on, I'm like, gosh, I mean, is all of that really happening? I know we want to believe that we live in a charmed world. I mean, would you like to tell us about one or two of those real life instances that you've sort of used in the book? And of course, that question which I asked you right at the beginning is that how easy or difficult is it to write a sports novel if you don't actually play the sport?
Okay. So I'll answer your first question first. So yeah, as I said, I have not been in the system. My perspective is only as a parent. So I have seen what happens on the field, but what happens in the sanghatan and what goes on is something I obviously had no personal experience with. So, but the people I spoke to, I spoke to people in the system who have, personal experiences with such things. So I got a lot of, I spoke to a lot of people. So, and I had like lots of copious notes made with every conversation. So I had a lot of material from other people's perspective. And to answer the other thing you asked about, is it really, or, we hope that it isn't so bad. The truth, unfortunately, is that it is much worse because it's a children's book. I had to sanitize a lot of what I heard. And so many instances of what really goes on in these sports associations is actually much worse than what I could put in a children's book. Even, right down to the foul language used on the field and by many of these people. Obviously, that couldn't, find a place in a children's book. So a lot of it was sanitized. But
Mhm.
so this is a milder version of what really happens, unfortunately. And yes, some of the instances, for example, there is a case where there's a match going on, and the team that is leading, one kid Mangya, who happens to be a street performer, and he comes from a lower economic group. He is wearing slightly different socks because he didn't have, he can't afford to buy everything that the others buy. So he has somebody has passed on some socks to him. And the parent of the team that is losing actually goes and makes a complaint to the coach, and the coach then takes it to the administrator, saying, this is against the rules, all the players have to be in the same colored socks. Now this seems a little bizarre and very petty, but it is something that actually happened. A very senior coach who runs an academy in India, he told me that this happened with his team because his team was leading, they were winning, the match was going on, and a parent complained. And then finally, after a little bit of drama, the complaint was taken back, because I mean it's a ridiculous complaint. So,
It
but
is.
the rules are were that the rules are that everybody has to be in this. The team has to be dressed in the same
Oh
clothes and socks.
gosh. Yeah.
But it's a petty reason to say that I want this team disqualified because they are beating your team. But that happened. It's so this is one incident, but there are several others that actually happened, either directly something I've seen or something that people have told me about. So things are reflect the book reflects what actually happens, and actually is a milder version of what actually happens, unfortunately. And the other
Unfortunately.
question, yes, it was very difficult for me. There were self doubt was my companion through the writing journey, because
Mm-hmm.
like history, I've studied history, I have a master's in it, I know trees, I have been spending years trying to understand and read about them. So I have a little more confidence, but football is not, or sport for that matter, is totally not my cup of tea. I only, like I told you, is because of being a parent of children who are avid footballers, that I know the little that I know. So there were many things that I had to grapple with, and along the journey, I even thought that maybe I should return my deposit to Penguin and say I can't do this because it's really something I've taken on. I don't know why I took it on, but I just, I think there were a lot of people who encouraged, and I spoke to, and like I said, my children were constantly reading the manuscript and saying, even the footballing scenes, that the right back should move in this way to save this sort of shot. These are things that I used to get very confused with. So, and these corrections they helped me make, saying, the goalie cannot be jumping this side if the shot has been hit this side, and
Wow.
those kind of things. Uh, but the main plot was not related to football as such.
Of
It's a
course. Yeah.
human story of human struggles. So that was okay with, I was okay with all of those. But the football part of it was definitely a challenge, because I don't play, or I'm not even an avid footballer in that sense to, followed football all my life. So that was definitely a challenge.
Wow. But now you're going to watch the FIFA finals with new eyes, I'm assuming, right? You know where the right back, you know where the.
Absolutely.
And we're hoping that, many of our viewers who are watching will, pick up copies of the book and, perhaps enjoy it, in the season of football fever, really, right? I'm not sure who said it, but I'm assuming I think it's one of the legendary coaches. I'm not 100% sure who it is who said it, but he said football is a fantastic metaphor of life. I mean,
Yeah.
what life lessons do you mean for readers of all ages? And I was, the other thing that I wanted to sort of tell our audience is the pace of the book is unflagging. You really kind of keep it going. You are wondering, I mean, there are various people's challenges that sort of come up, and yet it doesn't take away from what, I mean, the fact that each one is grappling with issues and moving towards a final goal, which we're not going to give away, of course, at the moment. It's got a fantastic pace, really like a good football match, I think, really, right? So I think readers of all ages will enjoy the book. I mean, football fans of all ages will. So, but what sort of life lessons do you mean for readers of all ages to take away from this book, Malika?
I think, like you said, in all football, all sports stories, battling the odds is a central theme. It's not going to be rosy. A lot of kids see, because of social media, pictures of a Ronaldo or a Messi or these people who are absolutely at the top, and you look at, their private jets or their holidays, or you don't realize that what has gone on, the hard work and the effort that has gone on behind it, right? So it's a story of all that glamour is, first of all, only the top 0.001% that perhaps achieve that. But for the rest of them, it is a grueling journey, and the hard work and the grit is what goes on behind even that glamour that you see, or you see people playing on TV and you think I can be that. But it's a very, very difficult journey. I see that with my children, and there, because of them, a lot of their friends who play football, it's very, very hard. uh, and it's a lot of support that you need. It's not something that you can do on your own. Your parents, your teachers, from
Hmm.
accepting things like, okay, my child is not going to do well in school because he's spending so much time on the field. You can't expect him or her to perform the same way as he or she would have had they not been playing. So even small adjustments like this from parents or from teachers, principals, coaches, where you are willing to accommodate that sport is the main thing in that person's life, and you will make other adjustments, or accept that certain things will not be the way you may have wanted it to be. And for the child also, I think, to realize that one important lesson is that you can't always win.
Yeah.
And it's not only about winning. Like the different teams in this book take different approaches. One coach believes that all is fair in love and war, and winning is the objective,
Ultimate
which
goal.
is true at a professional level. But at a junior level, your focus, that the other coach says, should be about getting better. It's okay if you lose, but as long as you're playing good opponents, you're getting better, your quality, your technique is improving. That is the focus, and not just winning every match. You can thrash a team 15-0 and feel happy about it, but you've not learned anything because the other team was just not at the same level as you. So what's the
Hmm.
what's the big deal if you thrash a team like that and get a medal? So it's not about winning, it's not about just having medals and trophies and whatever, but it is about getting better at what you do, such that you become a professional sportsman if you want to. And that journey is not all about winning, that journey is not all about glamour, it is about hard work, grit, and consistent effort. I think these are really the takeaways that can apply to anything that you want to achieve.
Absolutely. We have the wonderful writer Ramendra Kumar who's joined us saying any sport is a metaphor for life. Ramen, we just recommended your book on, Against All Odds, which is again a football story. All our recommendations were football stories. And we did tell them that you are the epitome of that person who has come forward against all the odds. I mean, in the recent battle against cancer being like the biggest odds that you have absolutely surmounted. David Williams saying, if talking with your hands were a sport, then Malika and myself would be competing for the World Cup. I'm pleased to hear that a non sportsman can write a meaningful book about football through conversation and research, because my knowledge of the subject wouldn't even fill a teacup. Love
Ah,
that point that it is a
thank you so much.
metaphor for
Yes.
life. Well made point, David. I mean, I think writers can, it really, by sheer dint of research, it is
Yeah.
possible to get the settings of the story right. It's possible to flesh the story out in the right kind of way. And then of course your craft and the story that you want to tell, that takes over altogether. So for
Yeah.
all of you who've been watching, you need to read it to figure out if the Maulsari Eagles will finally win the district cup. And I know Malika and me spoke about it yesterday, but we're absolutely not going to give it away to
Yes.
the readers, because you've got to read it to figure out whether they win or not, whether they battle the odds to triumph at the end.
Just to
It's
interrupt you here,
sorry.
Malsari is also the name of a tree.
Ah,
It's the name. Yes, that's something I put up on my website as well. But Malgudi Days is something that inspired me a lot. It was one of
ah,
my favorite books, R.K. Lakshman's, R.K. Narayan's book. So
Narayan. Mhm.
I've always wanted to create a fictional town like Malgudi. So Malsari, and of course, trees being a theme, a constant theme in everything I write and read. So I chose a name of a tree. So Malsari is the bakul tree, which is a very beautiful
Oh,
Indian
I
tree. So
see.
Malsari is the name of a tree, and that I've
Oh.
named the town based on the name of a tree.
Oh, that's a fantastic bit of trivia. I also wanted to point out, I found this glossary particularly useful, right? I mean, there's a glossary of football terms in the book. And I think
Yeah,
for, dads and mums and aunts and uncles who are perhaps not as familiar with football, this
yeah,
glossary is a great, point to understand various facets of football. So I'm thinking
right.
this is a great accompaniment, folks, to watch the FIFA World Cup finals with, this Sunday. Can I ask you that big question, which I asked the audience right at the beginning? France or Argentina, Malika? Whom are you
Uh,
rooting for?
for sanity in the house, because my son is a huge Messi fan, he would be terribly disappointed. So just for his sake, it's Argentina.
Ah, it's an answer that I was waiting to hear, and a lot of people in the show saying that. I mean, Mbappe has been spectacular in the World Cup
Absolutely,
as
yeah,
well, but Argentina it is, and Messi, it's possibly his last World Cup. I
yes,
mean, I'm
yes,
quite sure it is his last World Cup. So we're all rooting for Messi. So, folks, I mean, a great accompaniment to the FIFA Finals 2022, the District Cup by Malika Ravikumar, or if you're going to order and get it only next week, the football fever can continue with Malika's lovely book, The District Cup. Pick it up. It's on available on Funky Rainbow, www.funkyrainbow.com. Click on the tab that says Book Bazaar. Season 5 will take you to Football Fever. This and several other books that we've recommended and ones that we couldn't recommend up there, which we hope you will enjoy this FIFA World Cup season. Thank you so much, Malika, for joining us. It was a
Thank
pleasure
you for
chatting
having me.
with you. I want to thank your publishers, Penguin, for sponsoring this bazaar as well and for pointing us, in the right direction, giving us a very, very timely book to discuss, in this FIFA World Cup season.
Thank you so much, Vidya, for having me. It's been wonderful chatting with you as always.
Been a pleasure. Thank you, Malika. I'll
Thank
just
you.
quickly say hello to all the people who've joined us across the show. Again, million apologies for the glitch. I hope the people who, went off at that point when the live stream, got disconnected have come back. But I do want to say thank you to all of you who are watching. Apurva B. Ashok, I am Ada. It's so lovely that you join us from Kyrgyzstan. I absolutely and utterly feel delighted every time that you join us and watch this session, Adai. And I really hope one day we'll be hosting a bazaar right from Kyrgyzstan. It's our dream to be doing this. Sujita Selvakumar, what a pleasure. Formerly working with Funky Rainbow. We are hoping she'll be back at some point in time, definitely. Shruti Sri Raghunath, Durga, Pooja Shankar, Tamil with Love, Divya Menon, Tara Veera Raghavan, Preeti Menon. I hope we'll see you tomorrow at the Green Literature Festival, which is my last announcement for the day. Suma, Raju Sachina, Anam Fatima, Shravya, Aishwarya, Abhilash, Sangeeta Sharat, Ajit Kumar Jashvi, Ramendra Kumar, and David Williams. Thank you so much for joining us at the show. And I can see Rupa Baliga saying such an insightful session. Thoroughly enjoyed reading the book despite not being into football and wrote a fantastic review of it as well, Rupa Baliga. So many, many, congratulations to you as well for, reading the book with your son. And I completely agreed with one thing that you said. I mean, the book is pegged for older children, but I think even a child who's 9 can enjoy it and will, thoroughly sort of be immersed in this sporting story. Before we say bye bye and let you strike the right goals with all the books that we've put out, I want to say that Funky Rainbow is delighted to partner with the Green Literature Festival, which is happening in Bangalore tomorrow at the Bangalore International Center. We are the children's book partner for the Green Literature Festival. It's India's first festival dedicated exclusively to forms of creative expression on the environment. And so we have an entire green day out planned with sessions for adults and for children, straddling an entire gamut of things from workshops to panel discussions to storytelling, to and the awards. The Green Literature Festival also gives out awards at the festival for books for adults, for business books, and for books for children. And Funky Rainbow is absolutely delighted to be their children's book partner. It's happening at at BIC Bangalore between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. tomorrow. So please do be there. And I mean, do come by to enjoy a green day out with your family and friends. I'm delighted that Charms managed to put that one up. And Rupa Baliga, you're saying, see you tomorrow at GLF. Absolutely looking forward to seeing you. I may be running around like a headless chicken, but I will certainly see you. Looking forward to seeing many of you who are coming for the festival, at BIC tomorrow. But for those of you who are in other cities, you can look at our collection of football books and strike the right goals by picking them up. We'll see you next week with another bazaar. Till then, take care and let that football fever keep going on. Bye bye.